John Mercer stared at his computer screen, the soft blue glow illuminating his tired face. The small office at NASA's Deep Space Monitoring Facility was quiet at 3 a.m. Everyone else had gone home hours ago, but John couldn't leave. The anomalies in the signal data bothered him too much. For the past 3 weeks, he had noticed unusual patterns in the background noise they routinely collected from space. Tiny fluctuations that didn't match any known cosmic phenomenon. His supervisor, Dan Miller, had brushed off his concerns twice now. "It's just equipment degradation, Mercer," Dan had said yesterday. "The satellite arrays are due for maintenance next month anyway." But John knew better. He had worked with these systems for 7 years, and this wasn't normal degradation. The patterns were too regular, too deliberate. He took a sip of cold coffee and grimaced. His phone buzzed on the desk, and he picked it up to see a text from Samantha Wright. "Still at work? I'm in town for the conference. Breakfast tomorrow?" John smiled. He and Samantha had been friends since college. While he had taken a job with NASA's Communications Division, she had pursued astrobiology, becoming one of the leading researchers in the field. Her theories about non-carbon-based life forms had earned her both praise and criticism in scientific circles. "You bet," John typed back. "I have something weird to show you." The next morning, John sat across from Samantha at a small cafe near the research center. Her curly red hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and her green eyes sparkled with curiosity as he explained what he had found. "Look at this," John said, sliding his tablet across the table. "These signal patterns keep showing up at different monitoring stations around the world. They're faint, but they're everywhere." Samantha studied the data, her expression growing serious. "This isn't random noise," she said quietly. "And it's not coming from deep space either, is it?" John shook his head. "No. Whatever this is, it's happening right here, on Earth." "Have you told anyone else?" "I tried. My boss thinks it's nothing. But Sam, what if—" He leaned closer. "What if we're not alone?" Samantha didn't laugh like most people would have. Instead, she nodded slowly. "My research team found something last month. Microscopic structures in the upper atmosphere that shouldn't be there. We thought they were a new type of pollution particle, but they don't break down like anything we've seen before." Over the next few days, John and Samantha combined their findings. The signal patterns lined up perfectly with the locations where Samantha's team had found the strange particles. Something was happening globally, something that existed just beyond human perception. They worked from John's apartment, setting up monitors and analysis tools. On the 5th night, they had their breakthrough. "Look at this frequency," Samantha said, pointing to a pattern on the screen. "It's modulating in response to human activity. It gets stronger when there are more people around." John felt a chill run down his spine. "They're watching us." "They who?" Samantha asked, though her voice suggested she already suspected the answer. "Non-human intelligence," John said. "The exact kind you've been theorizing about." The summer heat pressed against the windows as they worked through the night, tracking the invisible signals. By morning, they had mapped out what appeared to be observation points in major cities across the globe. The pattern was undeniable. Earth was under surveillance. John tried to report their findings to his superiors at NASA. He scheduled a meeting with the director, Dr. Karen Bell. But when he arrived, something felt off. "I've reviewed your data." "John," Dr. Bell said, her voice oddly flat. "There's nothing of concern here. You're overworked and your imagination is getting the better of you." "But the patterns are explained by satellite interference," she cut him off. "I'm putting you on mandatory leave for 2 weeks. Get some rest." As John left the building, he noticed a subtle shimmer in the air near Dr. Bell's office window. A trick of the light, perhaps, or something else entirely. That night, he called Samantha. "They shut me down completely. Something's wrong with Dr. Bell. She didn't even sound like herself." "The same thing happened at my lab," Samantha replied, her voice hushed. "My research partner, Peter, suddenly insisted we abandon our atmospheric study. He deleted our samples yesterday." "They're already here," John whispered. "And they've got to, some of us." Over the next week, John and Samantha carefully reached out to others who might help. They found Alan Parker, a network security expert who had noticed strange data breaches at government facilities. They contacted Kimberly Foster, a neurologist, who had been treating patients with unusual changes in brain activity. They met in an old cabin owned by Alan's family, far from the city and electronic surveillance. There they pieced together what they knew. "They're called the Vecthar," Kimberly said, showing them brain scans of affected patients. "At least that's the closest I can come to pronouncing it. One of my patients spoke the name during a seizure. Look at these altered neural pathways. It's like something rewired their thinking." "Mind control?" John asked. "More like subtle influence," Kimberly explained. "They can't completely control humans, but they can nudge decisions and perceptions in certain directions." Alan pulled up digital maps on his secure laptop. Based on the signal patterns John found, they've established observation posts in 52 countries. They're targeting government officials, military leaders, and top scientists first. "But why?" Samantha asked. "If they have this technology, why not just take over openly?" "Assessment," John said suddenly, remembering Dr. Bell's strange words during their meeting. "She said something odd as I was leaving. Your species assessment is proceeding as scheduled." I thought she was talking about my job evaluation. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "We need to know more," Samantha finally said. "What they want, what they're planning. And we need to stay hidden," Alan added. "If they realize we know about them, we'll be the first ones they target." As night fell, they made plans to build a resistance network. John would use his NASA access to track Vecthar communications. Alan would develop secure ways for them to communicate. Kimberly would find ways to identify compromised individuals, and Samantha would continue her research into the aliens' biology, looking for weaknesses. They called themselves the Whisper, a subtle force against the silent invasion. As John looked at their small group, he felt a mix of fear and determination. Humanity didn't yet know it was facing its greatest challenge. The world carried on, oblivious to the betrayal happening in plain sight. Outside the cabin, stars twinkled in the night sky. Among them, watching and waiting, were the Vecthar. Earth had been judged worthy of their attention, but perhaps not their mercy. The silent invasion had begun. The question was, could a whisper grow loud enough to save a planet that didn't know it needed saving? 6 months passed since John Mercer and Samantha Wright discovered the Vecthar presence on Earth. Winter had come and gone, and now spring brought new life to the forests surrounding their hidden base. What had started as a small group of 4 had grown into a network of 27 trusted individuals. Their new headquarters was an abandoned mining facility in the mountains, retrofitted with equipment stolen from compromised government sites. Alan's security measures kept them hidden from both human authorities and alien detection. John stood at the wall of monitors tracking signal patterns across a global map. Red dots showed confirmed Vecthar observation posts. Yellow indicated suspected human collaborators. The pattern was clear and disturbing. The aliens had infiltrated key positions in major governments worldwide. "They've added another transmission hub near Geneva," John said as Eric Daniels entered the room. Eric, a former Special Forces operator with a thick beard and watchful eyes, had joined the Resistance 3 months ago after noticing strange behavior among his former military colleagues. His combat experience and strategic mind made him invaluable as their security leader. "That makes 17 hubs globally," Eric said, studying the map. "They're building their network faster now." Samantha entered from the lab section, her hair tied back, dark circles under her eyes from too many late nights. "That's because they're moving to the next phase. They've completed their initial assessment of humanity." "And?" John asked, already dreading the answer. "It's not good," Samantha said. Dr. Laura Phillips just arrived with new information. They gathered in the main meeting area where Laura, a brilliant quantum physicist with short gray hair and steady hands, was setting up her equipment. The Resistance had rescued her from a Vecthar facility 3 weeks ago, where she had been unknowingly working on alien technology disguised as a breakthrough energy project. I managed to decrypt part of their communication network, Laura explained, displaying complex diagrams on the screen. The Vecthar are part of something called the Galactic Assembly, a coalition of spacefaring species. Earth is being evaluated for potential contact or containment. Containment? Eric asked. Quarantine or elimination, Laura said grimly. The Vecthar assessment concludes that humans are too unpredictable and individualistic to join their galactic community. They've identified us as a potential threat. John felt a cold weight in his stomach. They're going to attack us? There's internal disagreement among them, Laura continued. The diplomatic faction argues for isolation, a technology that would effectively seal our solar system from the rest of the galaxy. The military faction pushes for what they call preemptive neutralization. They want to wipe us out before we can reach the stars, Samantha translated. The room fell silent. As the reality sank in, humanity faced extinction without ever knowing why. How much time do we have? Eric finally asked. The Galactic Assembly representatives will arrive within a year to make their final decision, Laura said. Once they do, we may have days, maybe hours before they implement their choice. John paced the room, thinking. We need to know more about these Assembly representatives. If the Vecthar are just one species among many, maybe others would be more sympathetic to humans. We'll need access to their central communication system, Laura said. I've identified a facility in the mountains of Peru that serves as their primary Earth hub. But infiltrating it would be nearly impossible. We have to try, Eric said. If we can't fight them directly, we need to find another angle. That night, as most of the resistance slept, John found Samantha alone in the lab. She was studying samples of the Vecthar technology they had managed to salvage. Any weaknesses? He asked. Samantha looked up, pushing hair from her face. Yes, actually. Despite their advanced technology, the Vecthar have a strange blind spot. They've evolved beyond strong emotion. They see it as primitive, inefficient. How does that help us? They can't predict what humans will do for love, for friendship, for loyalty, Samantha explained. Their models of human behavior break down when emotions are involved. That's why they're so afraid of us. We're unpredictable to them. John sat beside her. Over the months of working together, hiding together, fighting together, something had grown between them, unspoken but real. We should use that against them, he said. The next morning they presented a plan to the group. They would send a small team to gather intelligence from a minor Vecthar outpost near their location. It wasn't the main facility in Peru, but it might provide valuable information about the aliens' weaknesses and timeline. Eric would lead the mission with 2 other former military members. The plan was simple. Get in, download their data, and get out without being detected. 3 days later, the mission went wrong. The team successfully entered the facility, but silent alarms they hadn't detected alerted the Vecthar. When Eric and 1 team member returned, they brought back critical intelligence but terrible news. They took Samantha, Eric said, his face grim, blood seeping through a makeshift bandage on his arm. She was downloading the last data packet when they surrounded us. She told us to go, said the mission was more important than any one person. John felt his world collapse. We have to get her back. It's too dangerous, Eric argued. They'll be expecting a rescue attempt. Exactly, Laura interrupted, her eyes lighting up with sudden understanding. That's our advantage. The Vecthar don't understand human emotion. They won't expect us to risk everything for one person. It's not logical. John looked at the data they had recovered. Among the files was information about a Vecthar transport schedule. There's a ship moving between facilities tomorrow night. If they're taking Samantha for interrogation, she'll be on it. You want to intercept it? Eric asked. That's suicide. No, John said, a plan forming in his mind. It's unpredictable. It's human. And it might just work. They spent the day preparing. Laura identified a weakness in the Vecthar transport's shield system. Eric developed tactical plans for a quick strike. Other team members gathered weapons and equipment. As night fell, John looked at the small force ready to risk everything to save Samantha. The Vecthar had assessed humanity as dangerous because of their unpredictability. Maybe it was time to prove them right. The Vecthar think they understand us, John told the team as they prepared to move out. They've studied our science, our governments, our militaries. But they don't understand what drives us, not really. They don't understand that humans will fight hardest for the people they care about. Eric checked his weapon one last time. Let's show them why they should fear us. Under the cover of darkness, they moved toward the intercept point, a remote stretch of road where the Vecthar transport would pass. Their plan wasn't just to rescue Samantha. It was to send a message to the silent invaders. Humanity wouldn't be evaluated and discarded without a fight. The resistance was small but growing stronger, and now they had the most powerful motivation of all. They were fighting for one of their own. As the distant lights of the transport appeared on the horizon, John took a deep breath. The Vecthar were about to learn that human emotion wasn't a weakness. It was their greatest strength. The night air was cold as John and the rescue team took their positions along the mountain road. Eric led 3 fighters to the north side, while John and 2 others waited behind large rocks to the south. The plan was simple but dangerous. Disable the Vecthar transport and extract Samantha before reinforcements arrived. John checked his watch. The transport was due in 5 minutes. His heart pounded in his chest as he thought about Samantha. Was she hurt? Had the aliens started their interrogation? He pushed the thoughts away and focused on the mission. A faint hum grew louder as the transport approached. It looked like an ordinary black van, but the team knew better. Their scanners detected the energy shield surrounding it, and the non-human life forms inside. Ready, Eric's voice came through the radio. On my mark. The transport rounded the curve. Eric gave the signal, and Laura activated the device they had built using the recovered Vecthar technology. A pulse of energy shot out, hitting the saw. Transport's shield. The vehicle sputtered and came to a stop. Now! Eric shouted. The team moved in quickly. 2 Vecthar guards emerged from the front of the transport. In their human disguises, they looked almost normal, except for their too perfect movements and the strange shimmer around them when they moved too quickly. Eric and his team engaged them while John ran to the back of the transport. John broke, opened the lock with Laura's device and pulled the door open. Inside, Samantha lay on a stretcher, conscious but weak. A single Vecthar stood over her, holding a strange device. Without hesitation, John fired the modified stun gun Laura had designed. The Vecthar fell to the floor, its human disguise flickering to reveal a tall gray form with multiple limbs before stabilizing again. John? Samantha's voice was barely a whisper. I've got you, he said, lifting her from the stretcher. Can you walk? She nodded weakly. They drugged me, but it's wearing off. I knew you'd come. We have to hurry, John said. Their backup will be here soon. Outside, Eric and the team had subdued the guards. They quickly retreated to their vehicles, hidden in the trees nearby. As they drove away, John held Samantha close in the back seat. You took a big risk, she said. Worth it, he replied simply. Did they hurt you? No, Samantha said. They were studying me. They seemed confused by how humans work. I think I learned more about them than they learned about me. Back at the base, Laura examined Samantha while the others reviewed the data stolen from the transport. The information was more valuable than they had hoped. Detailed plans for the Vecthar's presentation to the Galactic Assembly and specifications for their communication technology. 2 days later, when Samantha had recovered enough, the leadership team gathered to discuss their next steps. The Vecthar will present their assessment to the Assembly in 4 months, Samantha explained. They've moved up the timeline after our raid. That doesn't give us much time, Eric said. And we still don't have a way to fight them directly. Laura had been unusually quiet, studying the stolen data on her tablet. Now she looked up. I don't think we need to fight them directly. I have an idea. She walked to the main screen and displayed a complex diagram of the Vecthar's quantum communication network. The Vecthar use this network to communicate with their homeworld and the Galactic Assembly, she explained. It's faster than light and nearly impossible to detect unless you know what to look for. But She highlighted a section of the diagram. They have emergency broadcast frequencies that they monitor but rarely use. If we could access those, we could send a message to the assembly ourselves, John said, catching on quickly. Tell them our side of the story. Exactly, Laura nodded. Project Whisper. Instead of trying to fight the Vekthar, we speak directly to the other species. In the assembly, can we build something that could access their network? Eric asked. With this data, yes, Laura said, but we'd need to place the device at one of their main communication hubs, the facility in Peru that I mentioned before. The plan took shape over the following weeks. While Laura and her team worked on the broadcast technology, John led efforts to create the message they would send. They needed to show the true nature of humanity, not just as the Vekthar had portrayed them. A new member joined their efforts. Olivia Bennett, a former diplomat who had noticed strange behavior among her colleagues at the United Nations. Her experience in international communication proved invaluable as they crafted their message to alien species they had never seen. We need to show them everything, Olivia said during a planning session. Our art, our music, our literature, our scientific achievements, but also our capacity for compassion, for growth, for cooperation. And evidence of the Vekthar's deception, Samantha added. Proof that they manipulated their assessment. While they worked, another team member, Alex Rivera, developed programs to identify compromised individuals, humans whose minds had been influenced by Vekthar technology. His algorithm helped them avoid detection as their network expanded across the globe. The resistance now included over 100 members in 12 countries. They operated in small cells, gathering information and preparing for the moment when they would need to act together. As the broadcast device neared completion, Vekthar activity increased. They seemed to sense that something was happening, though they hadn't yet located the Resistance's main base. We're running out of time, Eric reported one evening, returning from a reconnaissance mission. They've doubled security at all their major facilities. The Peru site is now their most heavily guarded location on Earth. John and Samantha stood at the edge of the compound that night, looking up at the stars. Somewhere up there, the fate of humanity was being decided by beings who had never truly understood the species they were judging. Do you think it will work? Samantha asked quietly. It has to, John replied. We can't fight them with weapons. Our only hope is to make ourselves heard. Samantha took his hand. Over the months of working together, their feelings had grown stronger, though neither had found the right moment to speak of them openly. Now, with the future so uncertain, words seemed less important than the simple comfort of being close. If anyone can make the assembly listen, it's us, she said. The Vekthar don't understand what makes humans special. They see our emotions as a weakness, but it's our strength. Our capacity to care, to hope, to dream, that's what they're afraid of. John nodded. In 3 days, they would launch their most dangerous mission yet, infiltrating the Peru facility to plant the broadcast device. Some of them might not return, but if Project Whisper succeeded, humanity would have a voice in the decision that would determine their future. As they turned to go back inside, a shooting star streaked across the sky. An old human superstition suggested making a wish. John did, hoping that somewhere among the stars someone would be willing to listen to Earth's whisper. Dawn broke over the mountains as 3 black vehicles drove along the narrow roads toward the Peru facility. John sat in the second vehicle with Samantha and Laura. Eric led the team in the first vehicle, while Alex and 4 other resistance members followed in the third. Final equipment check. Eric's voice came through their secure radios. John opened the metal case between his feet. Inside was the broadcast device Laura had built. It looked simple, a silver box with strange symbols etched into its surface, and a small control panel. But it represented humanity's best hope. Device is secure, John confirmed. All surveillance jammers are active, Alex reported from the third vehicle. Satellite imaging shows the facility security rotation begins in 30 minutes. That's our window. The plan was precise. Eric's team would create a diversion at the north entrance. Meanwhile, John, Samantha, and Laura would enter through a maintenance tunnel they had identified from stolen schematics. Alex's team would remain outside, coordinating with resistance cells worldwide who would launch simultaneous small actions to confuse the Vecthar global network. They parked the vehicles in a hidden ravine and continued on foot. The facility appeared ordinary, a research complex surrounded by high fences with regular security patrols, but their scanners detected the energy signatures of advanced technology hidden beneath its surface. Everyone knows their role, Eric said as they gathered one last time. If anything goes wrong, the primary objective is to protect the broadcast device. Everything else is secondary. He didn't need to say what they all knew. Some of them might not make it back. 15 minutes to diversion, Eric checked his watch. Move out. John, Samantha, and Laura made their way to the maintenance tunnel entrance hidden behind dense vegetation. The access panel responded to the hacking tool Alex had programmed, sliding open with a soft hiss. Good luck, Laura whispered to the others as they entered the dark passage. The tunnel was narrow and smelled of damp earth. They moved silently, guided by the soft glow of their modified flashlights that were invisible to Vecthar sensors. The main communication chamber should be 2 levels down, Samantha said, consulting the map on her tablet. They reached a junction where the tunnel split into 3 passages. This way, Laura pointed to the right path. Suddenly, alarms blared through the facility. That's too early for Eric's diversion, John said, concerned. Laura checked her tablet. They're not reacting to us. Something else triggered their security. Alex, what's happening? Samantha spoke into her radio. We've got unexpected company. Alex's voice came through with static. A ship just entered Earth's atmosphere. It's not Vecthar design. I think it's the assembly representatives. They're early. John felt his heart sink. The timeline's changed. We need to move faster. They hurried through the tunnel, no longer worried about stealth. If the assembly representatives had arrived, they might only have hours before a decision was made about Earth's fate. They reached a heavy metal door at the end of the tunnel. Beyond it lay the facility's central chamber, where the Vecthar maintained their quantum communication link to the stars. This is it, Laura said, placing a small device on the door's security panel. Once we're inside, I'll need 2 minutes to connect our broadcast to their network. The door slid open. They rushed inside, then froze. The chamber was vast, filled with pulsing columns of light and strange crystalline structures. In the center stood a Vecthar, but unlike the others they had encountered, this one wore no human disguise. It turned. As they entered, its tall, sleek form radiating a subtle glow. Multiple eyes blinked on its angular face. I have been expecting you, it spoke, its voice resonating strangely in the chamber. John raised his weapon, but the alien made no move to attack or sound an alarm. You are the humans who resist, it continued. I am Nex Lari, science observer. I have been curious about your kind. Samantha stepped forward cautiously. You speak our language. I have studied humans extensively, Nexalari replied. The others believe they understand your species. I believe they do not. Laura clutched the broadcast device tightly. We need to use your communication network. The alien's eyes blinked in a pattern they couldn't interpret. To speak to the assembly. Yes, I know. They are here now in orbit. The evaluation concludes today. Then help us, John said. Your people have lied about humanity. Not lied, Nexlari corrected. Observed incompletely. They see your wars, your conflicts, your destructive tendencies. They do not see... The alien paused, seeming to search for words. They do not see your music, your art, your capacity to change. You've been watching us differently than the others, Samantha realized. I have listened to your music, read your poetry, observed your care for each other and for other species, Nexalari confirmed. The Vecthar lost these things long ago in our pursuit of perfect logic. From somewhere above, a deep rumble shook the facility. Eric's diversion. John guessed. No, Nexlari said. The military faction has detected the assembly ship. They launch countermeasures to prevent any communication. They fear you might influence the assembly's decision. The alien moved to a control panel. You have little time. I will help you. Modify your device to reach the assembly directly. Laura hesitated only briefly before joining the alien at the panel. Together, they worked quickly to connect the broadcast device to the quantum network. Why are you helping us? Samantha asked. Nexlari. Because in studying humanity I have learned something my people forgot, the alien replied. Diversity strengthens, not weakens. The galaxy needs your perspective. Another explosion rocked the facility, closer this time. John. Eric's voice came through the radio filled with static. We've got Vector security forces converging on your position. Multiple teams. How long? John asked. Minutes, maybe less, Eric replied. We'll hold them as long as we can. Laura looked up from the panel. The device is connected, but someone needs to stay here to maintain the link and guide the broadcast through their security protocols. I do it, Laura said before anyone could respond. I'm the only one who fully understands how the device works. No, John began to argue, but Laura cut him off. There's no time to debate this. You and Samantha need to get to the secondary control room on the east side. From there, you can monitor the broadcast and make sure the assembly receives all of our message. The sound of weapons fire echoed through the corridors outside. She's right, Nexalari said. I will guide you to the secondary control room. We must hurry. John looked at Laura, understanding what her choice meant. The world will know what you did here today. Laura smiled sadly. Just make sure there's still a world to know it. She turned to the controls. Now go. Make humanity's voice heard. As John and Samantha followed Nexalari through a hidden passage, the sounds of battle grew louder behind them. John thought about all the people who had risked everything for this moment, for the chance to send humanity's whisper across the stars. Now it was up to them to make sure that whisper was heard. John and Samantha raced through narrow corridors after Nexalari. The alien moved with fluid grace despite the facility shaking from distant explosions. They reached a small chamber filled with glowing screens and crystalline controls. This is the secondary control room, Nexalari said. From here we can monitor the broadcast and ensure it reaches the assembly ship. Samantha activated the main screen while John kept watch at the door. Laura, can you hear us? She called into her communicator. I'm here. Laura's voice came through, strained but determined. The broadcast is initializing. Vector security forces are trying to break through the main chamber door, but I've sealed it temporarily. What's the status of the broadcast? John asked. Beginning now, Laura replied. The Whisper project is live. On the screen before them, data began to flow. The message they had carefully created over the past months was streaming into space. It contained everything they wanted the assembly to know about humanity: images of Earth's natural beauty, recordings of music from cultures around the world, art and literature translated into mathematical patterns the aliens might understand. It showed human accomplishments in science, medicine, and cooperation. But most importantly, it included evidence of the Vector's manipulation and selective assessment. It's working, Samantha said, watching the data stream. The broadcast is breaking through their security protocols. Nexalari monitored another screen. The assembly ship is receiving the transmission. They have not blocked it yet. Suddenly, Laura's voice came through again, more urgent. They're breaking through the door. I don't have much time. I'm going to overload the main transmitter to boost the signal strength. Laura, that could be dangerous, John warned. It's the only way to ensure the complete message gets through, she replied. Keep monitoring from your end. Make sure they hear everything. The data stream surged, becoming stronger and more stable. On another screen, they could see the actual content of their message as it flowed outward. Human faces smiling, crying, laughing, scenes of cooperation during disasters, scientific breakthroughs shared freely across nations, and finally, the evidence of the Vector's deception. A massive explosion shook the facility. Laura, John called into the communicator. There was no response. The main chamber has been breached, Nexalari reported, reading the facility's internal sensors. But the broadcast continues. She succeeded. John and Samantha shared a moment of grief for their friend, then focused on the mission. Laura's sacrifice couldn't be in vain. How much longer until the full message is transmitted? Samantha asked. 3 minutes, Nexalari replied. But Vecthar security forces are converging on this location as well. Eric, what's your status? John called through his communicator. Static crackled, then Eric's voice came through, punctuated by the sounds of fighting. We're holding them off, but not for much longer. Did Laura get the broadcast through? It's transmitting now, John confirmed. Just need a few more minutes. You'll have them, Eric promised. The connection went silent. John checked his weapon. We need to barricade the door by as much time as possible. They worked quickly, pushing storage containers against the entrance. Outside, they could hear the approaching sounds of Vecthar security forces. 90 seconds remaining, Nexalari announced. On the screen, they watched as more of humanity's story flowed outward to the waiting assembly. It wasn't just data. It was the full spectrum of human experience. The laughter of children, the power of music, the quest for knowledge, the capacity for love and sacrifice, the constant striving to be better. 60 seconds, Nexalari counted down. The door shuddered as something heavy slammed against it. The barricade would not hold for long. 30 seconds. John took Samantha's hand. Whatever happens next, we did our part. Earth knows nothing about this yet, but we spoke for humanity. Broadcast complete, Nexalari announced as the door burst open. Vecthar security forces flooded into the room, their human disguises flickering to reveal their true forms as they moved rapidly. John and Samantha raised their weapons, ready for their final stand. Then something unexpected happened. The Vecthar stopped. As one, they tilted their heads, receiving some communication inaudible to human ears. Nexalari straightened, eyes blinking rapidly. The assembly has received your message. They are responding. The facility fell silent. Even the distant sounds of battle ceased. On the main screen, new data appeared. A response from the assembly ship in orbit. What does it say? Samantha asked. They request direct communication, Nexalari translated, with the humans who sent the message. Before they could respond, a new sensation filled the room. A shimmering in the air, a feeling of vast attention, focused downward. The assembly was reaching out directly. What happened next was unlike anything they had experienced. Images, emotions, and concepts flowed into their minds. It wasn't words exactly, but they understood. The assembly had heard Earth's whisper and was responding with its own voice, or rather voices. 12 different species, 12 different perspectives. The Loxari, beings of pure empathy, shared their awe at the emotional depth of humanity. The Gentoo, warriors who valued honor above all, expressed outrage at the Vecthar's deception. The ancient Duraxians, who had watched civilizations rise and fall for millennia, recognized in humans a rare potential for growth. Most surprising was the response from the Kravashi, a species that had nearly destroyed itself through warfare before finding a better path. They saw in humanity a reflection of their own past, and a chance for both species to learn from each other. The assembly rejects the Vecthar assessment, Nexalari translated aloud, voice filled with surprise. They call for direct, open, contact with Earth. They wish to know humans better before any judgment is made. The security forces withdrew, confused by the unexpected command from their superiors. In orbit, the assembly ship was already sending signals to human satellites, the first step toward open communication. 3 days later, John and Samantha stood with other resistance members on a hillside near their base. The news had spread worldwide. Humanity was not alone in the universe. The Vecthar's silent invasion had been exposed, their leadership recalled by the assembly for violating first contact protocols. In the evening sky, ships from a dozen worlds were visible as bright points of light. They had come not as conquerors or judges, but as neighbors introducing themselves properly for the first time. What happens now? Samantha asked, looking up at the stars that suddenly seemed much closer. We learn from each other, John said. We join something bigger than ourselves. He thought about everyone who had sacrificed to make this moment possible: Laura, Eric, and many others whose names would never be known to the world they had saved. Their whisper had grown into a voice that had sent shivers across the stars. And now, the universe was answering back.